Desetljećima sustavno ignorirani, u 21. stoljeću NLO-i su postali tema dana. Nakon više od 5 desetljeća, Kongres i Senat održali su 5 saslušanja o NLO-ima. Ministarstvo obrane pokrenulo je službeni projekt za istraživanje vojnih incidenata ERO, Ured za istraživanje anomalija iz svih domena, u kojem se analiziraju kretanja fenomena u vodi, zraku i svemiru. Zakon o odobrenju nacionalne obrane iz 2023. godine uveo je nesvakidašnje stavke o zaštiti zviždača uključenih u reverzibilni inženjering tehnologija NLO-a. Uslijedio je javni istup zviždača Davida Graša, koji je ustvrdio da takvi programi posjeduju neljudske letjelice i tijela pilota, te da ih ilegalno skrivaju od Kongresa, ali su njegove izjave negirane. Koji je sljedeći korak javne rasprave o fenomenu NLO-a? To je pitanje koje ćemo postaviti ovdje, gdje NLO-i odavno lete. Na rubu znanosti. Dobar večer. Giuliano Marinković, istraživački novinar, specijaliziran za temu NLO-a. Dobro večer.
Dobro večer.
Podsjetimo, možda će se stari gledatelji sjetiti da ste bili upravo i šire od NLO-a angažirani i kroz suradnju s emisijom Na rubu znanosti 11 godina od druge do 12. sezone. To je bilo do 2013. Od tada je tada već prošlo dovoljno vode ispod Savskog mosta. Ali eto, jednom godišnje, 2 puta kad dođete iz inozemstva gdje se i dalje bavite ufologijom, sada još i povezani sa raznim istraživačima svjetskim, donosite nam, da tako kažemo, novosti ili ono što se skupilo novo u tom području koje je uvijek intrigantno. Pa danas ćemo se baviti zbivanjima isto tako zadnjih godinu, dvije vezanih uz ono što se popularno nazove zviždači. Za početak možda bi bilo dobro, prije nego što krenemo na te teme, da prođemo kratko događaje kojima smo se bavili u emisiji iz 2023. godine, a vidjet ćemo onda kuda će nas to dovesti.
Apsolutno, i uvijek se lijepo naravno vratiti u ovaj studio gdje smo preko 20 godina uvijek iznosili aktualne vijesti iz ovog područja. Pa samo kratko da podsjetimo gledatelje, dakle, potkraj 2017. New York Times u kojem novinari Kane, Blumenthal i Cooper objavljuju članak gdje razotkrivaju tajni program Pentagona koji se bavio istraživanjem upravo NLO-a. Tada to postaje naravno svjetska senzacija. 3 videozapisa su objavljena, mada ne od strane Pentagona, nego su na neki način procurili od direktora programa Louisa Elizonda, Christophera Mellona, stručnjaka za obavještajne poslove koji je tada bio u mirovini, i to postaje naravno tema rasprava. U cijelu priču se uključuje Kongres koji postaje integriran tom temom i nakon toga pozivaju očevice da svjedoče pred njihovim odborima, odborom Senata za oružane snage također, gdje iznose izvještaj iz prve ruke o viđanjima, incidentima. Naravno, tome smo već slušali. Incident Nimitz, incident sa nosačem zrakoplova Theodore Roosevelt, gdje je naravno cijela serija i val NLO-a utjecao na trenažne vojne vježbe. Nešto slično kao što smo imali kod 172. avijacijskog puka. Međutim, sama saslušanja u tim zatvorenim sjednicama nisu se samo doticala tih viđenja, nego je na kraju cijela priča otišla u programe sa ograničenim pristupom, takozvani SEP programi. To je jedan način kako Pentagon radi outsourcing sa izvođačima radova, gdje rade na bilo kojem razvoju tajnih oružja, novih tehnologija i slično. I tu su po prvi put čuli da navodno postoje programi za reverzibilni inženjering tehnologija koje nisu s ovoga svijeta i koje već se desetljećima u tajnosti razvijaju. Naravno, da bi Kongres to pokušao dalje kroz nekakav legalan proces ustanoviti, oni su osnovali radnu skupinu za NLO-e. To je bila tada nova inačica programa gdje je specifična zadaća bila da identificiraju takve programe kroz naputke koje su im dali ovi očevici iz prve ruke. Radna skupina za NLO-e se nakon toga transformira 2022. godine u ERO, to je Ured za identifikaciju anomalija iz svih domena, znači ne samo atmosfera, nego i morski slučajevi, slučajevi u orbiti, u svemiru, i neidentificirani zračni fenomeni, što je bila nova inačica kratice NLO, se mijenja u neidentificirani anomalijski fenomeni kako bi se obuhvatila sve domene i samim time što je Pentagon opstruirao i govorio da oni na bilo kakve druge slučajeve izvan atmosfere ne moraju davati na uvid takve informacije zato što sama kratica neidentificirani zračni fenomen se odnosi na atmosferu. Međutim, sada su pokrivene sve domene. Jel? I u konačnici bilo je nekoliko saslušanja gdje je sam budžet NLO-a bio u problemu, znači unatoč kongresnom naputku. Budžet je bio znatno manji. Kirsten Gillibrand, senatorica, je tražila o čemu se tu radi na saslušanju 2023. pred odborom za oružane snage i konačno nakon pisma u kojem je nestranački mnoštvo senatora potpisalo, tek su tada im riješili budžet koji je bio i zakonom definiran i tada ARO počinje puno bolje funkcionirati.
Dobro, evo sada ćemo malo pogledati nešto vlastitim očima, kao što su i očevici o kojima će biti riječi i koji će pričati vidjeli stvari vlastitim očima. Znači, u srpnju 2023. održana su treća saslušanja o NLO-ima. Ovaj put su pred američkim kongresom svjedočili pilot David Fravor, pilot Ryan Graves o susretima NLO-a s nosačima zrakoplova Nimitz i Roosevelt. Međutim, zvijezda saslušanja bio je zviždač David Graš koji je otvorio teme o tajnim programima, srušenim NLO-ima i biološkim dokazima.
The American people deserve to hear more about special access programs. Congress has a right to know if there's any unsanctioned weapons development. Satellite imagery that has not been provided to Congress. We should have disclosure today. We should have disclosure tomorrow. The time has come.
The witnesses will please stand and raise their right hands. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Let the record show that all the witnesses answered in the affirmative.
In 2014, I was an F-18 Foxtrot pilot in the Navy Fighter Attack Squadron 11, the Red Rippers, and I was stationed at NAS Oceana in Virginia Beach. After upgrades were made to our jet's radar systems, we began detecting unknown objects operating in our airspace. At first, we assumed they were radar errors, but soon we began to correlate the radar tracks with multiple onboard sensors, including infrared systems, eventually through visual ID. During a training mission in Warning Area Whiskey 72, 10 miles off the coast of Virginia Beach, two F-18 Super Hornets were split by a UAP. The object, described as a dark gray or a black cube inside of a clear sphere, came within 50 feet of the lead aircraft and was estimated to be 5 to 15 feet in diameter. The mission commander terminated the flight immediately and returned to base. Our squadron submitted a safety report, but there was no official acknowledgement of the incident and no further mechanism to report the sightings. Soon, these encounters became so frequent that aircrew would discuss the risk of UAP as part of their regular pre-flight briefs.
Dude, this is a fucking drone, bro. There's a whole fleet of them. Look on the ASA. My gosh. They're all going against the wind. The wind's 120 knots from the west. Look at that thing, dude. That's not our LNS though, is it? It's not. That is an LNS, dude. Well, if there's like... Look at that thing. It's rotating.
In 2004, I was a commanding officer of Strike Fighter Squadron 41, the world-famous Black Aces. We were attached to Carrier Wing 11, stationed on board the USS Nimitz, and had begun a 2-month workup cycle off the coast of California. We arrived at the location at approximately 20,000 feet in a controller called Merge Plot, which means that our radar blip was now in the same resolution cell as the contact. All four of us, because we were an F-18F, so we had pilots and Wizzo in the back seat, looked down a saw a white tic-tac object with a longitudinal axis pointing north-south and moving very abruptly over the water like a ping-pong ball. There were no rotors, no rotor wash, or any sign of visible control surfaces like wings. As we pulled nose onto the object, within about a half mile of it, it rapidly accelerated in front of us and disappeared. Our wingmen, roughly 8,000 feet above us, lost contact also. So as we started to turn back towards the east, the controller came up and said, "Sir, you're not going to believe this, but that thing is at your cat point roughly 60 miles away in less than a minute. You can calculate the speed."
In 2019, the UAP Task Force Director asked me to identify all special access programs and controlled access programs, also known as SAPs and CAPs, we needed to satisfy our congressionally mandated mission, and we were direct report at the time to the DepSecDef. At the time, due to my extensive executive level intelligence support duties, I was cleared to literally all relevant compartments and in a position of extreme trust, both in my military and civilian capacities. I was informed in the course of my official duties of a multi-decade UAP crash retrieval and reverse engineering program, to which I was denied access to those additional read-ons when I requested it. I made the decision, based on the data I collected, to report this information to my superiors and multiple inspectors general, and in effect becoming a whistleblower. As you know, I've suffered retaliation for my decision, but I am hopeful that my actions will ultimately lead to a positive outcome of increased transparency.
On the military aviation side, veterans that have recently got out have shared their stories and have expressed how the objects we were seeing in 2014, 2015 continued all the way to 2019, 2020, and beyond. And so it became a generational issue for naval aviators on the eastern seaboard. This was something we were briefing to new students. This is something that was included in the notice to airmen to ensure that there was no accidents.
Mr. Grush, finally, do you believe that our government is in possession of UAPs?
Absolutely, based on interviewing over 40 witnesses over 4 years.
And where?
I know the exact locations, and those locations were provided to the Inspector General and some of which to the intelligence committees. I actually had the people with the firsthand knowledge provide a protected disclosure to the Inspector General.
Have you faced any retaliation or reprisals for any of your testimony or anything?
It was very brutal and very unfortunate, some of the tactics they used to hurt me both professionally and personally, to be quite frank. Yeah.
How does a program like that get funded?
I will give you generalities. I can get very specific in a closed session, but misappropriation of funds and
does that mean
self-fund.
Does that mean that there is money in the budget that is said to go to a program, but it doesn't, and it goes to something else?
Yes, I have specific knowledge of that. Yep.
Mr. Grush, are you aware? Do you have direct knowledge, or have you talked to people with direct knowledge that there are satellite imagery of these events?
That was one of my primary tasks at NGA, since we process, exploit, and disseminate that kind of information. But I personally reviewed both what we call overhead collection and from other strategic and tactical platforms that I could not even explain prosaically, and I have a degree in physics.
The concept that an alien species that's technologically advanced enough to travel billions of light years gets here and somehow is incompetent enough to not survive Earth or crashes is something that I find a little bit far-fetched.
You know, I'm here as a fact witness and expert, but I will give you a theoretical framework, at least to work off, to kind of espouse crashes, regardless of your level of sentience, right? You know, planes crash, cars crash, n number of sorties, however high, a small percentage are going to end in mission failure, if you will, as we say in the Air Force.
Did this object come up on radar or interfere with your radar or the USS Princeton?
The Princeton tracked it, the Nimitz tracked it, the E-2 tracked it. We never saw it on our radars. Our fire control radars never picked it up. The other airplane that took the video did get it on a radar. As soon as it tried to lock it, it jammed the radar, spit the lock, and he rapidly switched over to the targeting pod, which you can do in the F-18.
Can you describe how the aircraft maneuvered?
Abruptly, very determinate. It knew exactly what it was doing. It was aware of our presence, and it had acceleration rates. I mean, it went from 0 to matching our speed in no time at all.
We have a problem here that needs further investigation.
Yes.
This flying Tic Tac, I mean, is it capable of being the product of any other nation on the Earth?
No, like I said earlier, I think it defies current material science and the ability to develop that much propulsion. And I know there's been some physicists who have done calculations, which is beyond anything that we have.
If you believe we have crashed craft, stated earlier, do we have the bodies of the pilots who piloted this craft?
As I've stated publicly already in my News Nation interview, biologics came with some of these recoveries, yeah.
Were they, I guess, human or non-human biologics?
Non-human, and that was the assessment of people with direct knowledge on the program I talked to that are currently still on the program.
Are you aware of any individuals that are participating in reverse engineering programs for non-terrestrial craft?
Personally, yes.
Do you know any that would be willing to testify if there were protections for them?
Certainly closed door and assurances that breaking their NDA, they're not going to get administratively punished for so. Yeah.
I want to thank everybody. We made history today.
Pa, možda bi vrijedilo malo detaljnije čuti najistaknutijih govornika u ovom izboru koji ste vi napravili od višesatnih zapravo saslušanja ispred Kongresa, koja su sve u javnoj domeni. Tko je u stvari David Grush?
David Grush je bivši veteran američkog zrakoplovstva, po činu bojnik, a kasnije kao civilni djelatnik prešao u Ministarstvo obrane radeći u Nacionalnoj geoprostornoj agenciji koja se bavila analizom satelitskih fotografija, naravno u svrhu Ministarstva obrane. I on je bio jedan od časnika, to jest tada djelatnika za vezu sa radnom skupinom za NLO-e koja počinje svoj rad i pokušava utvrditi ove neidentificirane programe s ograničenim pristupom koji se bave reverzibilnim inženjeringom i on postaje za nekoliko agencija taj djelatnik za vezu koji dalje pokušava to identificirati. Zašto je ovo isto ključno? Što smo mi u zadnjoj emisiji iz 2023. godine 2,5 mjeseca prije nego što Grush izlazi u javnost, baš pred kraj gledatelji to mogu provjeriti, smo spomenuli da je takav program za reverzibilni inženjering identificiran, da je radna skupina pokušala dobiti pristup tom programu, ali je bila glatko odbijena. 2,5 mjeseca poslije to postaje svjetska senzacija, upravo to što smo mi naveli, jer sam ja tada i dobio preko novinarskih izvora dojavu i nije samo Grush tu bio u pitanju, bili su tu još neki drugi ljudi koji su radili na tom cijelom projektu. Uglavnom, Grush je ispitujući preko 40 izravnih očevidaca iz prve ruke praktički uspio doći do zgrada, hangara, lokacija gdje se to odvija. Iz prve ruke, znači, sa tim intervjuima je dao cijele te informacije, praktički adresu gdje se nalaze ti programi. I nakon toga počinje represija koju on počinje doživljavati na poslu, kada je cijeli taj njegov projekt, su neke druge strane očito došle do tih podataka i on na kraju je stavio, to jest poslao žalbu Generalnom inspektoratu za obavještajne poslove, gdje je naveo represiju koju doživljava na poslu i da se svi ti programi, znači, ilegalno skrivaju od Kongresa. I tako Grush u stvari izlazi u javnosti i na kraju se njegov članak pojavlja u debriefu. Washington Post i New York Times su odbili da objave članak o Grushu i moraju otići praktički u nezavisni portal, ali nakon toga preuzima News Nation i to je postala tada svjetska senzacija.
Da, već desetljećima, kako bi se reklo, šuška se o srušenim i uhvaćenim letećim objektima koji se negdje navodno pokušavaju rekonstruirati, ali kako bi se reklo, sve se zapravo svodi na onu staru, nismo ih vidjeli, ali smo čuli glase, kako bi to rekao narod. Ali dobro, šta je tu je, stvari se stalno mijenjaju. Eto, u srpnju 2023. čelnik demokrata u Senatu, Chuck Schumer i republikanski senator Mike Rounds predložili su jedan amandman o razotkrivanju neidentificiranih anomalijskih fenomena, bivših NLO-a. U tom nesvakidašnjem dokumentu više se puta spominju pojmovi poput neljudska inteligencija ili biološki dokazi.
The United States government has gathered a great deal of information about UAPs over many decades, but has refused to share it with the American people. That is wrong, and additionally, it breeds mistrust. We've also been notified by multiple credible sources that information on UAPs has also been withheld from Congress, which, if true, is a violation of the laws requiring full notification to the legislative branch, especially as it relates to the 4 congressional leaders, the defense committees, and the intelligence committee. So the bill I worked on with Senator Rounds offered a common-sense solution. Let's increase transparency on UAPs by using a model that works, by following what the federal government did 30 years ago with the JFK Assassination Records Collection Act. It's beyond disappointing that the House has refused to work with us on all the important elements of the UAP Disclosure Act during the NDAA conference. But nevertheless, we did make important progress. For the first time, the National Archives will gather records from across the federal government on UAPs and have a legal mandate to release those records to the public if appropriate. This is a major, major win for government transparency on UAPs, and it gives us a strong foundation for more action in the future.
Shortcomings of the Conference Committee agreement that are now being voted on were the rejection, first of all, of a government-wide review board composed of expert citizens, presidentially appointed and Senate confirmed, to control the process of reviewing the records and recommending to the President what records should be released immediately or postponed, and a requirement as a transparency measure for the government to obtain any recovered UAP material or biological remains that may have been provided to private entities in the past and thereby hidden from Congress and the American people. We are lacking oversight opportunities, and we are not fulfilling our responsibilities.
It is really an outrage the House didn't work with us on adopting our proposal for a review board, which, of course, by definition here is bipartisan in the Senate. Now it means that declassification of UAP records will be largely up to the same entities that have blocked, obfuscated their disclosure for decades. We will keep working. I want to assure the American people, Senator Rounds and I will keep working to change the status quo. And before I yield finally to him, I'd like to just acknowledge my dear friend, the late Harry Reid, a mentor who cared about this issue a great deal. So he's looking down and smiling on us, but he's also importuning us to get the rest of this done, which we will do everything we can to make happen.
There is, we believe, information and data that has been collected by more than just the Department of Defense, but by other agencies of the federal government as well. And by allowing for an outside, independent collection of these records, we can make progress in terms of dispelling myths and providing accurate information to the American people.
Again, I thank my colleague and pledge to work with him and other bipartisan colleagues in the future to build upon what we've achieved in the conference report. We encourage our colleagues to join us in the further investigation of this issue and in advancing legislation that will complete what we have accomplished in this NDAA. And I yield the floor.
Zbog čega se evo Šumerov amandman o kojem smo slušali sada naziva snažnom dvostranačkom inicijativom?
Da, glavni predstavnici amandmana su upravo čelnik demokrata u Senatu Chuck Schumer i republikanski, znači senator Mike Rounds, što su u stvari dvije suprotne stranke, ali tu je druga ekipa uključena. Marco Rubio, koji je danas u novoj administraciji državni tajnik, to bi bio ekvivalent ministra vanjskih poslova, Kristen Gillibrand, svi ovi senatori koji su imali prilike slušati iza zatvorenih vrata ta saslušanja sa očevicima iz prve ruke, i sam David Grush koji, kažem, kao što smo rekli, došao do 40 očevidaca koji znaju točne lokacije. Upravo da bi se to nekako zakonski reguliralo, ovo je novi, znači, potez i Senata i Kongresa gdje su kroz taj zakon Schumerov amandman pokušavali to staviti u nekakav nadzor Kongresa, budući da po današnjim definicijama, kako se uvidjelo, oni djeluju ilegalno, bez nadzora i Kongresa. Oni i sami senatori, kada su provjeravali sa Pentagonom, nisu dobili podatke o tim programima, ali ostaju s druge strane izjave očevidaca. Dakle, u samom dokumentu koji je zaista u povijesti, ja mislim, političke povijesti nesvakidašnji, neljudska inteligencija se spominje 22 puta kao termin, biološki dokazi kao 7 puta, a cilj dokumenta je u stvari dobiti nadzor nad takvim programima za koje se pretpostavlja da sada s njima upravljaju u stvari privatne korporacije kao outsourcing ili izvođači radova koji kroz više desetljeća u stvari rade na pokušaju reverzibilnog inženjeringa i gdje se kroz tolika desetljeća i kako se smatra to je postala neka vrsta političkog tumora, jednostavno kroz legalistički nadzor to potpuno odvojilo. I to je bio nekakav, čak mogli bismo reći, vrlo, to su mnogi s optimizmom primili tu vijest, to se pratilo što će biti, ali na kraju, nažalost, amandman nije pao. Po dosadašnjim spoznajama...
To jest pao je? Nije prošao?
Da, pao je. Po dosadašnjim spoznajama Mike Turner, to jest senator koji ima veze sa bazom Wright-Patterson, dobija dosta donatora iz tog područja, bio veliki oponent tome. Tako da su glavne stavke nadzora nad tehnologijom i svim tim pale, ali par kratkih stavki o razotkrivanju i objavljivanju dokumenata je ostao. Međutim, ono što je dokument bio na kraju, nažalost, je sad obezglavljen, tako reći. Tako da ta inicijativa odlazi u povijest kao neuspješna.
To je zapravo princip rada vojno-industrijskog kompleksa. Dok je vojni dio zapravo pod nadzorom države, on kao jedno tijelo surađuje sa privatnom korporacijom, koja pak nije pod nadzorom države jer je privatna, i ovdje pruža se nevjerojatan prostor za zapravo manipulaciju i skrivanja, s obzirom da nekako u toj sivoj zoni, a opet postoje unutar postojeće bliskosti, koja je neformalna više nego formalna i naravno financijski vođena, se omogućava da zapravo se radi stvari izvan oka javnosti.
I nelojalna konkurencija, ako su ovi navodi naravno točni, a ova dokumentacija nam daje da o tome pričamo, znači neke firme imaju prednost u razvijenju takvih tehnologija, dok ostale su u mraku, a sami tim dobivaju prednost na konkurentskom tržištu.
Sada ćemo se malo posvetiti ono što novinare zanima na preskonferencijama. Dakle, NLO-i su i dalje česta tema razgovora na konferencijama za novinare, pa pogledamo kako o NLO-ima, Clarkovoj Odiseji u svemiru i Lucasovim ratovima zvijezda raspravljaju glasnogovornici Pentagona i Bijele kuće.
We'll always want to be as transparent with members of Congress and with the American people as we can, considering national security concerns.
This used to get laughed at for quite some time, for years and decades.
What gets laughed at?
The idea of Congress taking this up. I mean, Gerald Ford talked about this as a congressman back in 1966, and here we are, what is that, 60 years later, give or take. Is this a legitimate issue? Does the administration believe that getting to the bottom of these sightings in the air, is it a real concern? Is it a real legitimate issue as you see it?
Yeah. I mean, we wouldn't have stood up an organization at the Pentagon to analyze and try to collect and coordinate the way these sightings are reported if we didn't take it seriously. Of course we do. I mean, some of these phenomena we know have already had an impact on our training ranges. For when pilots are out trying to do training in the air and they see these things, they're not sure what they are, and it can have an impact on their ability to perfect their skills. So it already had an impact here, and we just want to better understand it. Now, we're not saying what they are or what they're not. We're saying that there's something our pilots are seeing. We're saying it has had an effect on some of our training operations, and so we want to get to the bottom of it. We want to understand it better. So, yes.
Do you believe these whistleblowers that have come forward?
I'm not going to talk about individual whistleblowers.
David Grush, who sat on a U.S. Air Force panel on UAPs, he says that he was informed of a UAP crash retrieval and reverse engineering program based on interviewing 40 witnesses over 4 years. Does such a program exist, and do you believe that the American people deserve to know if it does?
I have no information on that to provide for you today, one way or the other.
The department publicly released today the first volume of the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office's Historical Record Report, which reviews the record of U.S. government pertaining to unidentified anomalous phenomena, or UAP. In completing this report, AARO reviewed classified and unclassified archives dating back to 1945, conducted dozens of interviews, and partnered with officials across the DoD and the interagency. To date, AARO has found no verifiable evidence for claims that the U.S. government or private companies have access to or have been reverse engineering extraterrestrial technology. AARO has found no evidence that any U.S. government investigation, academic-sponsored research, or official review panel has confirmed that any sighting of a UAP represented extraterrestrial technology.
This is an internal investigation required by Congress. Why will Americans believe that the Pentagon has investigated itself and found that there's no evidence of alien life?
Well, look, the AARO office used a very rigorous analytical, scientific approach to investigate all past U.S. government efforts, all claims by interviewees. They were granted access at the highest levels to all information. None of the agencies that they spoke with prevented them from getting any of the information that they needed to do.
Okay, so on the UAP report, the Pentagon concluded that there is no evidence of UAPs being off-world technology, but it also said the government set up programs to reverse engineer such technology. Why did the government plan to study off-world technology if it says it doesn't have any proof?
Yeah, so as you highlight, no verifiable evidence that any UAP sighting represented extraterrestrial activity, that the U.S. government or private industry has ever had access to extraterrestrial technology, or that any information was illegally or inappropriately withheld from Congress, and alleged hidden UAP reverse engineering programs either do not exist or were misidentified authentic national security programs unrelated to extraterrestrial activity or technology exploitation.
Given the news cycle, you could announce anything about aliens or extraterrestrial life and no one would care. So I'm going to take the shot. What do you got on UFOs, aliens, etc.? Go.
The truth is out there, Jeff. And the truth is, we have no evidence to indicate extraterrestrial life has visited the planet.
One of the accusations that the department has within storage the remains of aliens or signs of life from elsewhere. Can you settle that once and for all? Do you or don't you have such remains?
Yeah, so I'm not aware of any remains that the department has of any signs of extraterrestrial beings or activity or technology.
Let me go to Jeff Shogel, task and purpose.
Thank you. Have any of the drone sightings been accompanied with sightings of a large rectangular black object, sometimes called a monolith, often accompanied by Also sprach Zarathustra by Richard Strauss?
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. I would probably have to think back to the words of a very wise prophet, Obi-Wan Kenobi, who said, "These aren't the drones you're looking for." But beyond that, I'll just have to move along. Okay.
Eto sad možemo opet doći malo natrag prema Ministarstvu obrane i onom programu ARO, pune tu kratice u Americi, sve je uvijek u kraticama. Imali smo mi nekad davno svoje kratice, ako se sjećamo, Subnor, Avnoj, tako svijet je u kraticama. Jednostavno, znači nakon tog povijesnog izvještaja u stvari u NLO-ima, barem za one koji prati tu temu, ARO i Ministarstvo obrane su onda povukli još jedan potez, objavili su jedan dokument o jednom programu koji se zvao Kona Blue. Pa što je taj program trebao prostavljati? Šta je on zapravo tu htio postići?
Da. Nakon što je Šumerov amandman pao, imali smo povijesni izvještaj gdje su konačno adresirali sve ove navode o tajnim programima koji se navodno bave reverzibilnim inženjeringom, za koji su iskaze dali očevici, gdje su naglasili da je uglavnom riječ o netočnim navodima i da sve to što ti očevici tvrde u stvari su pogrešno identificirali konvencionalne programe za razvoj konvencionalnih programa. Ali pošto nisu imali potpune podatke, davali su takve pogrešne izvještaje i Senatu i Kongresu. Kona Blue je korak dalje, gdje u stvari Kona Blue je bila inicijativa prošlog ovog programa ATIP koji je vodio Luis Elizondo, što je izuzetno zanimljivo. Mi smo još u emisiji iz 2019. koja se zvala Crni projekt i spomenuli da je ATIP pokušao dobiti status SEP-a, programa s ograničenim pristupom, kako bi mogli razmijeniti podatke sa pravim SEP-om koji se bavi s reverzibilnim inženjeringom, da bi razmijenili podatke. Ta inicijativa nije uspjela, a Kona Blue je upravo taj zahtjev prebacivanja u SAP kako bi preuzeli materijale i artefakte kako bi oni mogli također pomoći u istraživanju toga. Sad znamo i nešto više informacija. Sama Aerosvemirska korporacija koja je to imala po iskazima dosadašnjih sudionika toga i po knjizi Jamesa Lakackog je bila Lockheed Martin. Ona je u stvari, tamo su identificiran dio tih programa, a CIN, direktor za razvoj znanosti i tehnologije Glenn Gaffney, je blokirao cijeli pokušaj razmjene podataka i Kona Blue tada kao projekt inicijativa da se preuzme to za istraživanje propada. Međutim, sad Aero i Pentagon tvrde, evo, pa to je u stvari jedan od tih programa za reverzibilni inženjering gdje su se pokušavalo doći do takvih tehnologija, ali kao što vidite, to nije uspjelo, to je bio projekt koji je propao, a oni nisu na kraju imali nikakve materijale, pa su neki očevici to onda zamijenili i davali su takve iskaze Senatu i Kongresu. Međutim, ono što upravo kao kontraargument, ne, to su bili upravo drugi programi sa drugim nazivima, drugim imenima, upravo svi znaju šta je bila Kona Blue. I o tome su Luis Elizondo i Lakacki pričali u prijašnjim intervjuima, tako da ne bi trebalo biti zabune. Ali to je, znači, sad trenutna službena stavka gdje se cijeli taj rasplet doveo sad do ovih izjava Pentagona I tu sad smo trenutno gdje jesmo.
Nevjerojatno je koliko već sama rasprava kroz ovaj birokratski jezik, mogu bih reći, kao uništava magiju. Kada gledaš znanstveno-fantastični film, onda vidiš srušenu letjelicu, ono što zovemo aliena ili nekog nezemljanina i sve je uzbudljivo. Odjednom reverzibilni inženjering, skrivene tehnologije, programi, dopuštenja. Na kraju birokratski rječnik, rekao bih da puno uspješnije sakrije svu tajnost i magičnost događaja nego što to zapravo napravi sami materijali. Ali eto, idemo još jedan korak dalje. Dakle, dokument o tajnom programu Besprekorna konstelacija predstavljen je na 4. saslušanjima o NLO-ima. Pred Kongresom svjedočili su umirovljeni kontraadmiral Tim Gallaudet, potom bivši direktor programa ATIP Luis Elizondo, istraživački novinar Michael Schellenberger i član nasjene NLO studije Mike Gold.
This is going to be the original document from the Pentagon about Immaculate Constellation that Michael Schellenberger delivered to Congress today. 12 pages about this unacknowledged special access program that your government says does not exist.
We're met with people not wanting us to have hearings. We're met with people not wanting us to ask you questions. In fact, many of us were told not to ask some of you certain questions on certain topics.
Do you solemnly swear to affirm that the testimony that you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Confirmation that UAPs are real came to me in January of 2015 when I was serving as the commander of the Navy Meteorology and Oceanography Command. At the time, my personnel were participating in a pre-deployment naval exercise off the U.S. East Coast. It included the USS Theodore Roosevelt Carrier Strike Group. During this exercise, I received an email on Navy's secure network from the operations officer of U.S. Fleet Forces Command. The email was addressed to all the subordinate commanders, and the subject line read in all capital letters, "Urgent Safety of Flight Issue," with words to the effect, "If any of you know what these are, tell me ASAP. We are having multiple near mid-air collisions, and if we do not resolve this soon, we are going to have to shut down the exercise." Attached to the email is what is now known as the Go Fast video, captured on the forward-looking infrared sensor of one of the Navy F-A-18 aircraft participating in the exercise.
Did you box moving target? No, I took an auto track. Oh, okay. Oh my gosh, dude. Wow, look at this fly.
The very next day, that email disappeared from my account and those of the other recipients without explanation. And just this week, I learned from former DoD official Chris Mellon that satellite imagery of UAP from a few years ago still has not been shared with Congress.
Can you describe what was depicted in the satellite imagery? Just a description.
The term that the analysts used, they called it the button. It was a disc-shaped object.
UAP are real. Advanced technologies not made by our government or any other government are monitoring sensitive military installations around the globe. Furthermore, the U.S. is in possession of UAP technologies, as are some of our adversaries. I believe we are in the midst of a multi-decade secretive arms race, one funded by misallocated taxpayer dollars and hidden from our elected representatives and oversight bodies, all to hide the fact that we are not alone in the cosmos. A small cadre within our own government involved in the UAP topic has created a culture of suppression and intimidation that I've personally been victim to, along with many of my former colleagues. This includes unwarranted criminal investigations, harassment, and efforts to destroy one's credibility. Most Americans would be shocked to learn that the Pentagon's very own Public Affairs Office openly employs a professional psychological operations officer as the singular point of contact for any UAP-related inquiries from citizens and the media. This is unacceptable. It is up to the members of this committee and the other lawmakers to prevent additional government funding to those UAP efforts that remain hidden from congressional oversight.
We now have existing and former U.S. government officials
One of those individuals is a current or former U.S. government official acting as a UAP whistleblower. This person has written a report that says the executive branch has been managing UAP NHI issues without congressional knowledge, oversight, or authorization for some time, quite possibly decades. Furthermore, these individuals have revealed the name of an active and highly secretive DoD unacknowledged special access program, or USAP. The source of that document told me, that the USAP is a strategic intelligence program that is part of the U.S. military family of long-standing, highly sensitive programs dealing with various aspects of the UAP problem. The new UAP whistleblower claims that the U.S. military and IC database includes videos and images taken using infrared, forward-looking infrared, full-motion video, and still photography. Another source came forward who told me that they saw a roughly 13-minute-long, high-definition, full-color video of a white orb UAP coming out of the ocean approximately 20 miles off the coast of Kuwait. It was filmed from a helicopter. Then halfway through the video, the person said the orb is joined by another orb that briefly comes into the frame from the left before rapidly moving again out of the frame. I'll show you this example here. This is a presentation from the UATP task force. This is completely absurd. It's nuts, this level of censorship, of redaction on a document. It shows the redaction of how many reports they've collected, for how many years. 2 of the 3 potential explanations are blacked out. The Pentagon, the intelligence community is treating us like children. It's time for us to know the truth about this. I think that we can handle it.
I signed documentation 3 years ago that restricts my ability to discuss specifically crash retrievals.
Has the government conducted secret UAP crash retrieval programs, yes or no?
Yes.
Okay, were they designed to identify and reverse engineer alien craft, yes or no?
Yes.
You specifically said the document said you can't talk about crash retrieval. Well, you know, you can't talk about Fight Club if there's no Fight Club.
Correct.
Okay, I'm just making an observation.
Have you specifically had any experience with submersible objects?
One instance that was revealed to me was in the 80s on a nuclear-powered submarine, a ballistic missile submarine, that the object exhibited the characteristics of a Russian torpedo in terms of its speed of movement and closing rate with the submarine, and then it slowed and followed the submarine slowly in its wake for a period of minutes, and then rapidly exited the scene. And nothing that we know of and technology-wise could replicate that.
My predecessor program, OSAP, was trying to collect material of unknown origin.
Was it successfully collected?
It was not. What happened is that there was an aerospace contract company that requested to divest itself of the material that was collected in the 1950s. Unfortunately, that didn't actually occur.
So let's dive into that. That's the Bigelow Aerospace, correct? So
yes, sir.
There was a journalist, Christopher Sharp, who said that there was a transfer between Lockheed Martin, Bigelow Aerospace, and the CIA allegedly blocked this. Can you describe that?
What I can say is that it was blocked.
Based on your knowledge of UAP sightings, do you believe it's fair to say that they are especially common near nuclear sites?
Mr. Congressman, I absolutely am convinced of that, as are my colleagues inside the government.
Government, executive branch, not sharing with Congress what it knows about UAP infringes on your legislative and oversight responsibilities. This UAP issue may be the greatest issue of our time, and it's being hid from you.
There is something out there. The question is it ours? Is it someone else's? Or is it otherworldly? As the regulatory body, we must know. And anyone who prevents us from gaining access to that information, I would consider that criminality.
If there's no further business without objection, the subcommittee stands adjourned.
Pa eto, za kraj, koji bi bili tako posljednji događaj, pratimo priču pa ćemo možda za godinu dana saznati što je dalje bilo, ali koji bi bili posljednji događaj oko tih svih zavrzlama između Ministarstva obrane i svih tih zviždača, razotkrivača? Stalno se vidimo, pojavljuju neka nova imena svako malo, svakih 3, 5, 7 godina. Jesu li na javnu scenu stupila neka nova imena po pitanju NLO-a i svih tih tajnih programa?
Tako je. Nakon David Grasha, koji je naravno prvi koji je bio javan, ja znam još neka imena nisu trenutno u javnosti, ali kažem, Grash nije bio jedini koji je radio na tome. Graš je ostalom bio pod službenom zadaćom radne skupine za NLO-e da pokuša identificirati te očevice, a ne kako su bile neke interpretacije da je to čuo prijatelja od prijatelja na nekoj kavi. Jel? Što je bila. Međutim, pojavili se i na ovim zadnjim saslušanjima gdje smo sad vidjeli prilog, taj dokument o programu Besprijekorna konstelacija. Dakle, to je jedan zviždač koji je preko mog kolege Jeremija Corbella dao cijelu izjavu o tom programu i to je na tim saslušanjima objavljeno, gdje se smisao tog programa Besprijekorna konstelacija je nastao nakon 2017. godine, nakon upravo ovog skandala u New York Timesu kada je izišao ovaj program ATIP, gdje se pokušava spriječiti novi skandal. I pod tim programom se pokušavaju usisati sve snimke koje bi bile potencijalno imale NLO-e prije nego što do njih dođu regularni djelatnici i počnu ih procesirati. Kako bi se spriječilo neko novo curenje u novinama ili slično. I kroz zatvorenu mrežu Ministarstva obrane taj program je to radio. Taj zviždač također napominje niz snimki spektakularnih koje oni već imaju i već su prikupili. Lovac koji pokušava presresti 12 sfera koje lete u kockastoj formaciji.
Nevjerojatno.
U pokušaju presretanja događa se nešto slično kao i kod Panadrije, da neki od tih dijelova formacije znatno ubrzavaju prema lovcu. I on tada pokušava to izbjeći, slično kao u Panadriji, ali ovi ga nastavljaju slijediti i dosta je kao napeta situacija u smislu i zračne sigurnosti. To je samo jedan niz od tih koji su usisani, koji se tamo čuvaju. Neki od imena koji su dalje izišli je, na primjer, i Harold Melgrim, znači jedan od bivših predsjedničkih savjetnika i Kennedya i Johnsona, Nixona, Geralda Forda, sada u podmaklim godinama, 89 godina, gdje potvrđuje, sad je dosta aktivan i na Twitteru, da je sin Richard Bissell je u stvari za vrijeme JFK-ove administracije dobio on briefing gdje su mu potvrđene, kako kaže, otherworldly technologies, izvanzemaljske tehnologije i da vlada to zna. Zatim jedan od još zviždača koji je tu izletio je Kirk McConnell, koji je bio prije član Senata, odbora Senata za oružane snage, koji je bio jedan od ljudi koji je saslušavao te očevice. I on sam kaže, nakon što je saslušao sve iz prve ruke šta su govorili o tim programima, za njega dvojbe nema. I zadnja priča koja upravo kruži News Nationom je istupanje Jakea Barbera, to je bio pilot helikoptera koji je radio na prikupljanju srušenih NLO-a ili NLO-a koji su pronađeni i objavljena je snimka gdje je helikopter, naravno u noćnim uvjetima, nosi jedan jajoliki bijeli objekt gdje on tvrdi da je dio toga i odlučio je to također sada staviti javno. To je sad trenutno gdje je rasprava stala, međutim čekamo još više potvrda o toj zadnjoj Jack Barberovoj priči. Svi su se naravno uhvatili analize videozapisa koji naravno uvijek u ograničenim okolnostima u mraku teško je naravno dobiti neke više podatke, ali pričekat ćemo još da vidimo koliko će se ta priča potvrditi, ali je dio tog trenda gdje sada sve više istupaju, jer se sada smatra da bi trebalo doći do katastrofalnog razotkrivanja. To je normi kao vrući termin u ufologiji, šta to u stvari jest. Nakon što smo vidjeli ove Šurmerove inicijative i ovih amandmana koji su propali, smatra se da bi onda trebalo izići sa takvim katastrofalnim curenjima podataka javno, direktno kroz zviždače, bez legalne, legalističke kontrole, gdje više ne bi se moglo zakonski kontrolirati razotkrivanje, pa onda kud puklo da puklo, pa nek se sve da javno.
Pitanje za koga katastrofalno. Kako se svi ti zviždači odnose prema ovoj gomili neidentificiranih letećih objekata iznad gradova?
Što se tiče ovih zadnjih izvještaja o dronovima, o tome nije bilo, to je tek u principu sad zadnji trend tih vijesti. Nije bilo znači nikakvih zviždačkih elemenata oko toga. Pentagon je naravno to demantirao, ali da se radi o nekakvim anomalijama, ali što se tiče toga zviždača nema trenutno za te dronove. Jel? Više bili, rekao bih, ovi neki legacy, skriveni slučajevi iz prijašnjih godina. Jel? I što se tiče programa koji se bave s ograničenim pristupom i prikupljanjem samih tehnoloških objekata.
Giuliano, hvala na ovom super iscrpnom izlaganju svega što se zbivalo u zadnjih godinu dana. Iako nas iskustvo može ičemu naučiti, onda znači da se vidimo opet iduće godine. kada će se eto možda dogoditi to katastrofalno razotkrivanje o kome
Vidjet
se
ćemo,
priča,
vidjet
nakon
ćemo.
njega više onda nema dalje smisla.
Da, morat ćemo zaključiti.
Da. Eto, do neke sljedeće prilike, pozdrav, sretan put i ugodan ostatak večeri koji svima nama.
Hvala.
Da. Hvala i vama na pažnji. Eto, ako ništa drugo može se zaključiti da svijet nije u potpunosti, ako uopće, onakav na kakvog smo naučeni. Može se zaključiti to u kojoj mjeri pojave uočene tisućama puta mogu ostati nepostojeće. U velikoj, ako se svi izvori kojima se vjeruje, od obrazovanja do znanosti, politike i vojske, ponašaju kao da su nepostojeće, čak i kada su zabilježene uređajima. A može se zaključiti i to da je priča o neidentificiranim tehnološki naprednim letjelicama zapravo tek na početku. Za razliku od ovog dana, koji se ipak bliže kraju uz laku noć.